Nothing brings people together quite like Team USA at the Olympic Winter Games. From NBC Universal's iconic storytelling to the innovative technology across Xfinity and Peacock, Comcast brings the Olympic Games home to America, sharing every moment with millions. When Team USA steps onto the world stage, people aren't just watching, they're cheering together. This winter, everyone is all on the same team. Comcast, proud partner of Team USA.
Our big motto here is 111%. And what I tell the kids is I just need 1% more better. Get 1% better every day. So we kind of turn that into the 111%. What we're looking at is every day you come in, I want your best effort. I want you to try and do better than you did the day before.
Welcome to the next episode of the Tully Legends podcast on the Coaching Coordinator Network, presented by our partner, Tully. At this time of the year, the off-season program is the focus, and Tully helps staffs get more out of the season by making standards visible, tracking the work, and tightening the feedback loop. This series highlights coaches and performance leaders who are building strong programs the right way, with clear standards, measurable accountability, and consistent feedback. Each guest you'll hear on this podcast has used Tully to collect more than 10,000 data points within their program over the past year. This isn't about numbers for the sake of numbers. It's about clarity. It's about visibility. It's about creating an environment where athletes understand expectations, see their progress, and take ownership of their development. The coaches featured here are not chasing technology trends. They're using simple, practical tools to strengthen communication, increase buy-in, and build cultures rooted in measurable growth. Throughout this series, you'll hear how tracking has become an integrated part of daily coaching, driving motivation, reinforcing standards, and helping athletes and parents clearly see development over time. This isn't about replacing coaching, it's about equipping coaches with better feedback systems. Let's get into today's conversation.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Tully Legends podcast. Very excited today to have Justin Loudon join us. Justin is the head strength and conditioning coach at Ezell Harding Christian School down in Tennessee. Justin is kind of a rock star in the industry, has worked in a few different states, a few different areas. We're just catching up on all the success they're having down there at Ezell, but Justin has also worked closely with the NSCA, has worked with high school programs, mentoring and teaching coaches and advising across the country. So really excited to have him on. We have been working with Justin in the program for the last couple of years, as he is a newly minted member of the Tully Legends program. He kind of has been from day one. Their Ezell's numbers, 2025, they collected over 18,000 data points across their 200 athletes, 200 plus athletes, a little over 7,000 check-ins. So Justin, excited to have you on, kind of dive into your program a little bit and really just kind of talk about how you guys do things and, how you've been able to have so much success and how you kind of pair data and information back in ways that help your kids and help them develop, help them engage. So welcome. Thanks for joining us.
No, I appreciate you having me.
So let's get into it. Tell us about your program. Tell us about Ezell. Like, what's the setup down there? How long you've been there? And kind of the fundamentals of your program.
Yeah, so this is my 4th year here at Ezell. Very small, little private Christian school. I'm fortunate enough to work with 7th grade through 12th, and there's only about 220 kids, 7th grade through 12th here. So, realistically, I'll get to see the kids for up to 6 years. I mean, I've got the program broken down into 4 different levels. We have a block 0, which is going to be my 7th graders. They're the newbies, right? They know nothing. And then my block 0 intensified group is going to be my 8th graders. They're really not ready for that next step, but we're just kind of adding a little bit of layer to it. And then my block 1 is really unique because it's all high school. It's 9th grade through 12th. At this point, they've had 2 years worth of strength conditioning. The only PE class that we actually offer is strength and conditioning. So that makes things, nice for me. I'll get to see everybody. So the 9th through 12th is really geared towards more hypertrophy work and strength work. And then I do have a block 2. My block 2 kids are the ones that have aspirations to go to the next level. They're my juniors and seniors, right? So for me, I really kind of look at that. Our goal is to get them to move well really early, get them to learn the basics of what we're exactly wanting in our program. And then as we progress, we can add some more layers to it with the block 1 and the block 2. There's not very many block 2 kids. To be honest, I handpicked them. I don't have standards that go to it, except for, I've been coaching long enough to kind of know what looks good and what doesn't, and with my block 2 kids, I really focus on strength and power production with them. We incorporate snatches, we incorporate a little bit higher level lifts just to help them prepare for their season and then for that next level. Like I said, I'm fortunate because I do get them from 7th grade through 12th.
It's certainly an advantage, and it's great to have them 7 through 12. I mean, that's more. We're seeing that more and more with public schools being able to kind of trickle down in the middle school. You're kind of building a culture right over those 6 years and kind of an identity for their kids. I'm going to keep everything in my football vernacular for us, but building that identity, that culture. What are the pillars of that for you? I'm a 7th grader coming in. What do you kind of want that message to be? Obviously, they're learning the movements. They're learning, they're getting in the weeds on development, and you're helping them through that process. But really, kind of the high level culture and priorities of your program.
Yeah, that's a great question. Our big motto here is 111%. Right. And what I mean by that is you always ask, you're always been told, hey, give me 100%, give me 110. Right. And what I tell the kids is I just need 1 more percent better, get 1% better every day. So we kind of turn that into the 111%. That what we're looking at is every day you come in, I want your best effort. I want you to try and do better than you did the day before. So how do we go about that here? My background is health and PE. And that's what my undergrad's in. So I really am big with having a curriculum when it comes to Ezell. And we teach them about strength and conditioning. I want them to know the why. It's great to understand how to lift, but if you don't know why you're lifting or why you're doing that, and I feel like I've failed you as a strength conditioning coach and as a teacher. When you leave here, and after your 6 years, I don't want to see you on YouTube fail reels because you don't know what you're doing. Right. So we really take the physical education portion, and my goal was for them to become physically literate. Right. Do they understand? Do they know the information? Are they understanding of it? That kind of concept and the knowledge behind it. So we go about that in a real systematic approach. Right. Their first 2 years, 7th and 8th graders, we're learning how to move well. Right. And I kind of took that from Gary Schofield, right? Move well, move strong, then you can move fast concept. So for us, it's really about the education and the curriculum portion as they continue to go, teaching them muscles, teaching them basic terminology. Our block 1 kids, we use a lot of velocity-based training here. So they'll do a project this year on velocity. Our block 2 kids will do a video analysis project where they'll analyze the bar path either from a clean or a snatch. So they're truly learning about strength and conditioning. For us, I think that's the big pillar is the physical literacy aspect and the curriculum aspect that we bring.
It's awesome. We talked about that at length in the past, and I love that concept. Just to, again, as an athlete, sort of that physical literacy as you learn about your body, you learn the way you move, you learn about fatigue and how you're going to recover, and how different points of the year you might feel differently. And if you're playing basketball and you're going to a football lift, it might not click. So I think that's such a great thing. Again, it doesn't have to be under the heavy weights or heavy back squat onto a box in 7th grade. It can be simple, but you kind of learn how your body functions, your strengths and weaknesses, and it really helps you identify. I always felt as an athlete like that. That's such a skill to have as an athlete.
It is. And I think my role as a strength coach and as a teacher, right, it's not just about educating the kids. We also need to educate the sports coaches. We also need to educate the administrators, and we also need to educate the parents. When I think about it, who really are our stakeholders? Well, yes, it's the kids, but in order for us to get buy-in, then we need to have buy-in from the coaches, from the teachers, from the administrator, from the parents. Especially in the high school setting, a lot of people think that they've lifted, or I've been in college and I played college athletes, I know how to lift. Well, there's levels to this. Right. So giving them the information, I write a newsletter home to every 2 weeks to the parents, the coaches, the administrator, and whatever I'm teaching the students, I also bring that back to the parents, the coaches, and the administrators so they get that same information. So we can all be on the same page and kind of talk. And I think that really helps our program because it gets the parents involved, it gets the community involved, and just allows us to continue to have success.
Buy-in is the number one thing. I mean, that's been the core to what we've done with Tully for years. That was really our entry point. It wasn't as much about the what, it was about, the why and And I think every coach you talk to, whether you're a strength and conditioning performance coach, you're a team coach, sport coach, whatever, it just buy-in. I mean, that's if you can get athletes to buy in and engage and believe in what they're doing, I think that's it. That's the name of the game. It really doesn't matter exactly what the program is. There's nothing worse than you'll feel it immediately if you walk in the room and people aren't bought in. I mean, nobody's they're lollygagging. They're definitely not giving that extra 1% every day. The coaches. So I think in the high school setting, a lot of times you hit on it, sort of does, the sport coach buy-in does sort of come first sometimes. I think it's, from what I've learned, I've never been in the room coaching, but it sounds like that could be the hardest part, is getting that sport coach buy-in. There's so many, their background, their belief system, maybe a little bit of egos involved sometimes, or misunderstandings. Like, I mean, you talk about the newsletter, but when you really first started getting going, like, what was the challenge you faced there with sport coaches? How did you overcome it? How have you rolled it into the program you have now?
I think it's twofold, right? I think depending on the situation, it could be the sport coaches that are hardest. But then I also think depending on where you're at, it could be the parents, right? So I kind of took it as my job is to get both of them to buy in. And the way that I did that was you provide them the information. Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm going to do it. Every year I've been here for sports coaches, I do an in-service at the end of the school year. Right. And I asked, what do you guys want to know? Oh, you want information? Okay. The first year I did an information about me and what the program looks like. And I had asked the question at the beginning, I did a PowerPoint basically. And I said, what are the top 3 things that you want from your athletes? And then we asked that. And then I went through how I do my programming and how I did this. And I said, at the end of the presentation, I said, do you see a way that your kids won't be able to do those things? And nobody raised their hand. Coaches don't know what they don't know. Parents don't know what they don't know. So the more you educate them, the better off things end up being. The other thing to think about is when I first got here, the sports coaches were really kind of doing their own thing. So getting them and educating them on energy systems, educating them on periodization. Hey, this is when we're going to hit hypertrophy. We might hit strength here. We'll hit power here. Talking to the coaches and just getting their feedback. Well, how else do you get buy-in from the parents and the coaches? When the athletes or the students start improving, the injury rates go down. When I think about like what we're doing here, are the kids more confident? If the kids are confident, then guess what? They end up being more confident on the court, on the field, on the pitch, on the mat, wherever it may be. For me, my number one focus is always on what's best for the students, the student athletes, and how can I get them stronger, bigger, faster, whatever. And really it comes down to how can I get them to be more confident in themselves? Because if I get them more confident in themselves, then they play better. And then if they play better, then the parent is happier. If the parent's happier, then they talk to the coaches. If the coach is happy, they talk to your administration. So your focus needs to be on the students and student athletes first and getting them to be confident. Now, what does that look like? That means, hey, maybe they jumped a little higher. Maybe they sprint a little bit more, or maybe they feel like they're in better shape, or maybe when they look in the mirror, they're happier with themselves. It doesn't necessarily need to be the KPIs. The KPIs come later. Realistically, can I get them to move well? And if they're moving well, they're going to play better. And I get them more confident in themselves, which means they buy into the program more.
Yeah, that makes obviously a ton of sense. And I think that's a big challenge, from a strength conditioning is, you can get in the weeds, right? We can get in the X's and O's of strength conditioning, percentiles, analysis, and we talk about it all the time, but I get it from both the athlete, maybe the sport coach side. You see those eyes start to glaze over. We found, you kind of just hit on it, that the key from a sport coach to see, like, how do we, measure success, or an athletic director, it's usually like injuries, and sometimes not even quantify. It's just kind of that feeling like, man, I feel like we had a lot of ACLs this year. Like that kind of starts to linger, and then it's the attendance. It's our kids showing up. Like if they're showing up to it, and you kind of explain the other one, it's just confidence. Like it's not, I don't think the coaches, they like parents even, they don't necessarily care about those X's and O's. Like Jimmy's, 10-yard fly, go up, go down by 0.5%. And what does that mean? It's fun to kind of put those in terms, but it's really, you can feel that confidence. You can see the attendance every single day, and you kind of just know if kids are hurt or they're not at 100%. So, I mean, I think that you hit on it, and I know that's kind of what's permeating through your platform, your program now.
I listened to a podcast yesterday with Boyd Epley, and they had asked him, when he was in Nebraska, if they had certain metrics, a squat max or this and that, but they knew the kid was going to be good. And he was like, not really. He goes, everybody's different, right? And he goes, but are they playing better? Like if I look at where we're at on the Tully, data and all that, like I'll see a lot of red sometimes, I'll see a lot of green, but it's really basing off of where we're at. Like if we just hit a heavy strength and now we're going back to lighter, it's going to turn red. But when I'm looking at the overall trend, is the overall trend continuing to go up? And I like using that data, looking at the trends as, okay, is something going on? Where are we at that part of the season? If a student's going down and constantly going down, then how do I need to adjust? Or do I just need to adjust for that student a little bit? Maybe that student's getting more playing time. Maybe that student's having a harder time at home, or whatever the situation is. And it doesn't have to be an athlete. I've got mixed students. I've got everybody. I mean, I've got a class of 40 seventh graders by myself. How do you look at that data and translate that to what do you need to adjust? I think Tully does a great job with that. Allows us coaches to do that and adapt on the fly, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, our goal's always been to kind of keep it super configurable. Like, we don't care what the metrics are. They're going to be different everywhere. You're going to be different for your block 2 kids versus your block 0. Like, they're not going to do the same things, but it should be the same program in the sense of, again, we want the literacy about your movement, move well. We want you to get stronger, and kind of we'll build you, to your specifications essentially, but all those other intangible pieces have to go with it. You've got an awesome program. You're 2024, NSCA High School Strength Coach of the Year. But, this isn't your first rodeo. Like, you've been at other programs, other schools, you were back in Colorado. Like, how did you learn all this? I mean, how did you get to kind of this point to come into Ezell, and talk about some hardships or learning along the way, like what you've seen out there and maybe what those lessons were for you?
Yeah. I started my teaching career out in Colorado at a school up in Monument. And I was just a PE teacher. I had a couple weights classes. Ended up really falling in love with that, got my CSCS and took over at Vista Ridge High School. I was fortunate enough there that the strength coach prior to me, he had a great foundation. I just basically took that and continued to build, and really wanted to recognize what our student athletes were doing. I was fortunate enough 2021 to be named the Colorado Strength Coach of the Year through the NHSSCA. And that was kind of where everything really got started. Eric McMahon, who is one of the lead guys up at the NSCA, he had reached out because he lived about a mile from there in the same neighborhood that I did. So kind of got connected with Eric. Eric came up and observed me coach and teach, built a great relationship with him, kind of started talking with him, and then got more involved with the NSCA, got to do a bunch of presenting, at national conferences and regional conferences, and just really get everything out what we were doing. Like I said, I think I come a different route coming through the health and PE background. So I didn't go through internships or GA positions. I learned on the fly, and when I was studying for my CSCS, I was fortunate enough that I was in a weight room. So I was able to take all that stuff and apply it and see what worked, see what didn't work. And then with, having that PE background, we were always told it's the KISS principle, right? The keep it simple, stupid concept, right? And I've tried to apply that as much as I possibly can. When I took over the position here, that was a game changer. That was different, right? When I got here, our kids, to be honest, they couldn't really get into an athletic position. They didn't know what it was, right? So I had to completely start from scratch and go the most basic of basic you could possibly figure it out, starting with just our warm-up. Can we teach them to do high knees? Do they know the difference between karaoke and karaoke? Right? Can we, those kind of things. And that first year, I was like, I can't do it. The traditional periodization that you see in the NSCA Essentials textbook. At that time I was reading through the 1x20, and I was like, well, let's try it. And that entire first semester, we ran the 1x20 with everybody. I put my little twist on it, but it worked extremely well. And then I was like, okay, well, let's add a little layer to it. And that's where we went from block 0 to the intensified. And then each year we've just kind of added the next layer to it so I could get to my block 2 kids. And it's very same setup that I had in Colorado. But in Colorado, I didn't have intensify. I went block 0, 1, and 2. But with the 8th graders, it was just easier to add one more layer to it to continue to progress them through that LTAD method. So it's really getting out there and trying things. And I think a lot of times, when I was younger, I wanted the newest and biggest thing. As a strength coach, as I've progressed through now, I think 12 years of doing this, like it really comes down to the most simplistic stuff. And I think I've taken a lot out of my program just to keep the basics. And that's the one thing that if I had to give any advice to young strength coaches, you don't need anything except for the basics of the high school. Get them to move well, and then they can get stronger, and then they can start moving faster. And your job in the high school is to get them to continue to progress so that when they get to college, they haven't peaked as a high school student, right? I want my kids going off to college and continue to progress through whatever that strength coach is going to do for them. And then by the time, they're done with college, hey, they can continue to lift throughout the rest of their life. I don't need them having back problems and whatever problems from me. I need them to continue to learn, continue to progress, so when they get to college, they can continue. And then, as well as I do, then they can go to the pros if they can make it that far and continue to progress in the pro level, right? It really is, in my mind, a long-term athletic development model throughout the entire process.
Yeah, I think people will be shocked. I mean, I guess it's becoming more and more talked about, but people will be shocked, at least, again, I can only speak for football, but the number of guys who like make it to the pros and like they didn't even play football till like senior year of high school, or they played a basketball and then they were like, I was 215 pounds going into my senior year of high school football. Like, trying to get recruited, I was a tall kid. Like I was 250 when I walked on campus in college. I was all these things that you just keep developing. I was developing as a second year player in the NFL, like physically. I think a lot of kids are like, there's always going to be the finished products, but people kind of get enamored with that. Unfortunately, the recruiting culture, everything, I don't know where we're going to land on that, of how this is if it's going to help or hurt, but I think it's this idea of allowing athletes to develop, being comfortable with that development, not being too eager to get to that point is so critically important. And you seem to communicate really well.
It goes back to, like you said, continue to develop, right? Like you're going to develop at a different rate than what I'm going to develop, right? And I think a lot of it goes back to, are you more worried about the KPIs or are you more worried about the performance? Right? For me, yeah, it's great to see a kid back squat 500 or front squat this or clean really heavy. That's great. But is it translating to the field? That's what I care about. Are you on the field more? Are you continuing to play better and continue to improve? Then I don't need to switch things up. I just need to keep it simple and you to continue to improve in here, which hopefully means you're continuing to improve out there. And if you are, then the KPIs are going to be what they are.
Yeah.
Before the rest of this conversation, a quick note about Tully. Many coaches assume performance tracking systems are built for Division I budgets or full-time sports scientists. That assumption is outdated. Tully was built specifically for high school programs, private training facilities, and small performance staffs that want clarity without complexity. The platform allows coaches to collect and organize training data, monitor progress, track attendance and accountability, and share meaningful feedback with athletes and parents all in one place. Programs using Tully consistently report 3 outcomes: higher athlete engagement, stronger accountability, increased parent visibility, and trust. Most importantly, coaches regain time because the system centralizes information instead of scattering it across spreadsheets and whiteboards. If you believe feedback should drive development, but you've assumed technology was too complicated or too expensive to implement, Tully was designed specifically to remove those barriers. Visit tully.app to see how simple performance tracking can transform your program.
Let's bring it back to Tully. Like, I'm curious about this. So this is kind of our point where I see us positioned in this world. So there's that KPI sports science world. Like everything's measured. It's Moneyball, data analytics. I got to hit this number. You better run a 4.5 or I'm not talking to you mindset. We've already kind of pushed back on that. But then there's kind of the reluctantly, or people are kind of forcing this path to say, I can't do any of that KPI stuff. So I'm just going to roll the ball out. I'll put up 3x5 on the board and I'm gonna let the kids go and I'll watch them. And you kind of think, for Tully, we try to marry those two. We try to be a little bit of both and give you the tools. But like for you, how do you see that? How do you marry those two? How do you balance, again, KPIs and data, which can be exciting and fun, I'm sure for you, with your background, you'd love to get into that stuff. But like you said, keeping it simple, understanding where that line is. I guess, how do you marry those two?
Yeah. So we make our kids at the beginning of the school year, they have to write their goals on the mirrors. And I tell them, it doesn't matter what little Johnny's doing, what weight they're doing. This is an individual concept. I want you to focus on yourself. Yes, you're going to have your peers there that are going to push you and motivate you, but ultimately you're the one that's got to do the work. So when I go through this and we're talking to the kids, they love looking at the graphs. They get that information. So if they're like, oh, coach, like I'm looking at my squat and like I don't feel like it's stronger. Well, okay, let's look at the graph. And they may see they're going down for a week or two and then it jumps back up. And I say, so for us, it's more about the individual. When I'm going around the room saying, hey, you're doing a great job of this. Let's look at these graphs. Let's see where you are. They love that. The Tully score allows them to see where they're at. Right? Where are they at compared to the rest of their team? Or if they're not on a team, where are they at with the rest of the students that are the Gen Ed students? right? So them being able to look at their dashboard themselves and kind of start seeing the trends for them, that's what matters more to them. To be honest, they could care less about what the rest of the team's doing. I'm okay with that. I want this to be about you when you come in here and what are you doing to push yourself that extra 1%? Because again, and I'm coming from the wrestling background, right? Like wrestling's not so much a team sport, but there's a team aspect to it. And if I do what I need to do as an individual, then I can go out and I can win and I can push and then the team wins. But you as yourself also need to take care of with stuff that you need to in hand to help the team out. So when the kids can see that they're improving through the metrics, that they're improving through their tele score or based off of their team, they end up, that's a big motivator for them.
Yeah, and that's what we always see. I want to get away from the, like you said, the 1,000-pound club idea, because everybody's not going to squat 500 pounds or and they're not going to bench it. And that doesn't mean that they're not progressing. That doesn't mean that they're not doing everything they should be and maybe potentially setting themselves up for better success. Like, again, that finished product. So again, that's where we kind of want to fit, with Tully and go, man, I don't think I ever benched 500 pounds. So some of these kids, is crazy. So here's like to kind of head towards the end of this conversation. Like, I want to give you the impossible question, because we talk with schools, we talk with programs, public, private, large, small, rural, urban, all over the country. And I wish there was a Justin Loudon in every building across the country. I wish you do too. Having that knowledge, that expertise, it would be amazing. But we talk with ADs all the time. People say, you know what, we don't have the budget. We're never going to have a full-time strength coach. We're never going to have that person. So from where you're sitting, like, what would you advise those programs? Like ADs say, and I've got 3 teams that work really hard. Their coaches have their own programs. Some kids don't show up. This weight room's got cobwebs in it. We don't have the PE. Like, what do we do? Like, where do people start? How would you kind of advise them, big picture on this?
Yeah, I love that question. I think it's actually more simple than people realize, especially for an AD, because you have a PE teacher. And if you're going to try and tell me that you're going to put somebody that's not certified to go into a pool, no, you're not. You're going to get them certified. So as an AD, why don't you pay for one of your PE teachers to go get certified? At that point, you no longer have to have an extra stipend. Why? Because your PE teacher who's already in the weight room, pay for them to go get their CSCS. Pay for them to go get their personal training cert. Allow them to have the professional development they need to. And then what ends up happening is you already have the individual as teaching the class anyway. Now that shows them that school is bought into them. Number one, right? It also allows that PE teacher to go get continuing education hours, right? And their stuff will already be taken care of. Send them to state, regional, national clinics. Oh, you really want to do the weight room? Fine. I'm going to get you certified. I'm going to send you to stuff that I need to. It's going to cost you what, $150, $200, right? I think that's doable. With me being the chair for the NSCA high school group, we are currently working on a K through 12 curriculum that, hopefully in the next, I'd say, 1.5 years, we'll be able to roll out. But that's another way where a PE teacher can take this curriculum and go, hey, I need lessons on this. I need lessons on this. And it's already laid out for them. So they can pick and choose based off of the national standards, right? Each state has their own state standards, but we've got the national standards from SHAPE. So they can utilize that. And there's so many resources, but I don't think that the ADs and administrators are understanding that you already have that person in building. Help them become certified. Help them do their job better. You do it for English, you do it for math, you do it for all the core classes. Now go help the PE teachers out to do it.
Awesome. No, I think that's huge. And there is a person, whether it's the PE or part-time coach, almost every school we talk to, there's somebody in the weight room. There's somebody doing that job, but it seems a lot of reluctance and hesitation about, like getting that certification. Again, you wouldn't have an uncertified athletic trainer, swim coach, whatever. I love that that point. It makes a ton of sense. And what we always find when we look at this data and these data points and talk about, like, I dare somebody to point to a person in their building who has more touch points with their students and their athletes than that PE teacher, that strength coach. They're seeing everybody every single day. And I think to not invest in that person, invest in that role. You don't have to go out and identify someone independent, like you said, like build it from within and build like kind of that culture. People already know these students, know how the school works, know the programs. I think that's awesome. Awesome advice. What kind of as we wrap up, what's top of your mind right now? You kind of hit on it with the NSCA, but what's clinics you go into this year? What do you want to plug? Anything for you specifically to kind of share with people watching?
Yeah, again, like I said, we're the NSCA's high school group. We're working on a K through 12 curriculum, and it's going to be one of those things where the game plan is that it'll be basically like books kind of thing, where a teacher, we can have like a template lesson plan, and they can go, okay, this is unit 1. We're working on this for 6 weeks. We can plug and play. Boom, 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 boom. It's really, I'm really excited about this because I don't know of any other organization or any other group that's doing this, but it's really geared towards, like you said, those PE teachers that don't have, a certification that can allow them and help them better. And we're starting, like I said, K through 12. So it's keeping it very broad in the elementary, really sticking to the elementary PE concepts. And then as they get to middle school, start getting a little bit more in depth, looking at the FIT principle or periodization or whatnot. And then as, basic movement patterns. And as we get into the high school, getting more specific. So it'll be a nice, long-term athletic development model kind of concept throughout it. I'll be out at the national conference. I think that's in New Orleans this year. Be down the Tennessee State Clinic with the NHSSCA here in about 35, 40 days. Really, just out and about, right? Keeping everything going, keep coaching, keep learning, keep finding more professional development to learn from.
Well, we appreciate your time. Obviously, personally, I've loved working with you the last few years, learning from you. Appreciate all the insight that you share to our other customers and people abroad. So excited to continue along that path. And yeah, thanks for being with us, Justin.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
That wraps up this episode of the Tully Legends podcast. The common thread across every guest in this series is not budget size, staff size, or access to elite facilities. It's intentionality. The most successful programs create clarity, define standards, measure what matters, and give athletes consistent feedback. The result is stronger culture, greater ownership, and more sustained performance gains. If today's conversation challenged the belief that data tracking is only for large programs, that's the point. Practical technology, when implemented with purpose, amplifies good coaching rather than complicating it. For more conversations with coaches building measurable, accountable programs, subscribe to the Tully Legends podcast and find our articles on Tully on coachandcoordinator.com. Until next time, continue building with intention.